Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Film with Purpose, Social Commentary, and Discourse in the Movies. I'm super excited for tonight. This has been part of an ongoing independent study I've been conducting with the WUFT Dial Center Public Speaking Lab. And tonight we'll be hearing from some amazing panelists on their experience with advocacy in film. So give it up. Woo! I want to say a huge thank you to Professor Houston Wells, who will be our moderator tonight and will be leading our discussion. Woo! Tonight, our panelists include Alyson Larson, Iman Zawahry, and Matthew Abramson. Some of you may know them, some of you may not, but they're all experts in filmmaking with digital media, documentary work, and movies. Tonight, the panel will start with a few short questions for our panelists, and at the end, there will be a Q&A for all of you if you have questions for our lovely panelists. And now I will hand over the mic to our lovely moderator, who will take it from here.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to, I've got a short list of questions, as Sarah alluded to. I think rather than call on folks individually, maybe I'll just throw the ideas out there and then we can sort of hash them out together. So the first one is, considering the title of this evening's panel, Film with Purpose, Social Commentary and Discourse in the Movies, I kind of want to expand this just a little bit beyond just the idea of traditional movies, because we've got folks here with a lot of experience kind of across the gamut as far as visual storytelling, film-based storytelling. But with that in mind, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with creating messages that matter, whatever that means for you? Do it. Nicely done.
All right. No, we're going to share.
Oh, got it.
So alphabetically, I'll start. I'm sorry. That means you might be last. Again, Matt Abramson, good to meet y'all. So I work with media services, and we do a great number of projects that are broadcasted on WUFT, TV, FM, GHQ, but a lot of public media station content. And one of the big things we do is greater good, and so that is like a really brief storytelling. We put like 4 different stories about nonprofits together and try to use a lot of filmmaking techniques to get their story told very briefly, concisely, but thoroughly, including all the details of what's happening, what their programs entail, what their needs are, how they interact with the community, and so on and so forth. So as Houston was saying, filmmaking as we know it is spilling into the internet and digital spaces and social. A lot of times you see stories and film being produced in verticals on TikTok and broken up into like really micro chapters. And so it's evolving. And so from the standpoint of legacy broadcast media, we still have the opportunity to do a lot of that kind of storytelling and messaging, and in this case, cause messaging and making sure that nonprofits are out there in front of the community and able to share what the causes are and what the good is that they're able to do.
Hi, I'm Alyson. I am a documentary filmmaker and adjunct here. So my experience has been with documentary film. One of the films that I was involved with was Being Michelle with Orange Kite Productions, and that was a story of a deaf and autistic woman in the criminal justice system. Her trauma through that, through her whole entire life, and then her healing through her art and just kind of getting out of that cycle. And so within that, I was the camera operator and associate producer. And there was a director and producer, husband-wife team out of LA, and then we told the story out of Williston. And so the advocacy there was really just getting the awareness out of how many people are actually incarcerated with disabilities, and then like the right to communication while you're in the criminal justice system, from like court hearings to like actually being incarcerated. And so kind of building awareness through that. And a lot of documentaries in the past have been awareness pieces. But now they're moving to impact campaigns, and so you can be an impact producer. And so it's like, where does your documentary live beyond the screen? And how do we not just build awareness, but build action for communities? So they brought this to deaf and disabled organizations, you know, all across the U.S., you know, really hammered at home with their screenings, Q&A, panels, all of that. And then I am currently co-directing Reef Keepers, which is a story about the people behind the restoration efforts on Florida's coral reef. It's a deeply human story about like their loss, their grit, their innovation, and above all, their hope for restoring something that's protected our shores for generations. And so I am like in the bowels of that currently. And the advocacy there is to reach Floridians for sure. I mean, we want to do the film festivals, of course, but getting the message out that hope is action, and that in this climate that we are in this climate change era, and everything that's shifting around us, that there is not hopelessness, that you can do something, that when we're looking at Mount Everest, you know, the little actions add up while we figure out long-term solutions. So yeah, we're gonna build an impact campaign and hopefully launch the film next year, and that's my experience. Iman?
Yes. The question was, what's our experience in advocacy in film? Is that what the question? Hi, everyone. I'm Iman. I am a filmmaker, a narrative comedic filmmaker in particular, and I do social justice filmmaking, and particularly through comedy. Actually, just everything I do is advocacy in my life, community-wise, particularly for marginalized communities, and then doing it through film. So, yeah, I don't know where to start. Where was supposed to? Oh, so start with the movie. My feature film that I made was called Americanish, which is the first American Muslim romantic comedy made by Muslim women about Muslim women, and in itself was a huge advocacy for showing that Muslim women have agency over their own lives and that they're not a monolith. And it was told through a rom-com. Please watch it. It was distributed by Sony. It's on all the platforms. Support your CJC lecturer. Anyways, and so with that, I also run a nonprofit organization that supports 200 Muslim filmmakers and supporting them to tell the advocacy in their stories. And so documentaries and narratives, and so doing impact campaigns, doing screenings, going to festivals like Sundance, Tribeca, and South by Southwest, and showing their films, because these films are never see the light of day in these huge distribution strategies. So our industry really, as you all know, are huge gatekeepers to these stories. And these stories that are from marginalized communities are usually about some sort of advocacy in terms of their lives, societally, economically, in all those manners. So I do a lot of that work as well in what I do. So yeah.
Okay. So, and it's interesting because that's like you're creating art that advocates within itself, and you also advocate for this art to be received by a larger audience. Yeah. Let me just tell you exactly what you just said.
Thank you.
I'm making it make
Great
sense
sum
for
up.
me.
Yes.
So we have now. Let me ask you: is now a good time to show trailers, or we want to hold it off because we were just discussing those two productions?
Sure.
Let's start. Since we heard from Alyson first, let's do Reef Keepers.
There's all kinds of voices under the water. You hear the snapping shrimp, you can hear your own bubbles, you can hear the parrotfish crunching away.
All of a sudden, the whole ocean opens up.
Just like this magical thing, and fish all over the place, and you back up just a little bit from it, there are all these other corals. Oh my gosh, you know, I'm in heaven. This is the most incredible place in the world.
It's the animal in the ocean that the longer you spend time with it, the more you can build a relationship with it.
These corals, when you see them and interact with them, you learn their personalities.
These corals make me smile every time I see them.
2014, 2015, everything was bleached. Every single species. It was devastating. And then 23 came along. We had reports of divers in 30 feet of water, and their dive computers are registering 92 degrees.
Millions of corals are literally starving to death because of the scorching ocean temperatures over the summer.
We went from healthy, nice reefs to completely dead in a week. They just died, they cooked.
People would just start their day and just put their head on my shoulder and cry for a minute, not knowing what they were going to come out to.
Since the 1970s, Florida's reefs have lost more than 90% of their coral cover.
There was so much lost in 2023. Some of what was brought to land is all we have left. It's the foundation of the ocean.
If we lose our reef here in Florida, we'll lose our fisheries, we'll lose our tourism, we'll lose our coastal protection.
It's going to take a whole community of people working together to try to solve this problem.
We're building one of the biggest coral farms in the country. We're going to be breeding new genetic strains of corals that can handle higher temperatures.
We're laying the first steps in the staircase. We need to have a societal level change in order for coral reefs to survive at all.
We're just going to create little oases of hope.
Who wants to live in a place of desperation where we don't even try?
I think about what am I going to tell my grandkids? I want to at least let them know that I gave it my all.
So I'm writing an essay.
Right to the comments.
Mom! Mom, don't you want us to have more than this? Be something?
Yes, but first you go and get married and have children. Then go, be whatever you want.
Dude, I'm never gonna be able to afford my own place. Home's not that bad. It's a zoo, Mariam.
What's the purpose of your visit?
I'm here to find a nice Pakistani-American doctor to marry.
Jeez, study group.
The MCATs aren't gonna ace themselves. I wanna go to Harvard. It has the best PEDS program in the country.
Okay.
I gotta tell you, Roombas really freak me out. If you're gonna get a Roomba, like, just put it only in your room.
Hala, these prices are ridiculous. We will pay you $24 for everything.
My daughters, they think they know everything best.
You know what? I'm a grown woman.
Boys don't like girls all covered up. You're never going to get married with that scarf on your head.
I don't want to be with someone who doesn't get my values.
Our country is being overrun by immigrants.
You're working on the Douglas Smarts account. I mean, the guy is a racist.
I got a call from the hospital. I'm gonna have to go in.
You don't need to marry the first guy who shows interest in you.
Everybody's gonna get what they want.
This is America. A land of dreams.
Okay, so we have a room full of students here. We have a panel full of teachers and instructors. Is it, so the answer to this question is obvious, but we'll expand upon it. Is it important for these students to learn or know how to advocate?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the answer is yes. Yeah, I think we're all, if you're just interested in filmmaking or you want to do this as a career, I think we get into filmmaking. I always say we're like humans first and then we're filmmakers second, but we get into it because we love storytelling, and storytelling naturally carries messages. We all have something to say, and this is just our medium for it. So I think it's really important to hone your voice now and experiment with a lot of things and do things that are close to your heart. They say like write what you know, right? The stories that you want to tell are very important. And those stories and your voice will evolve over time. So it doesn't have to be super cemented right now. But yeah, I would say that's my answer.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is exactly the same. And I say this to students all the time. It's like, you have your voice. Your voice is advocacy, and that's what you need to understand. And it doesn't have to be, like about marginalized communities or about like, the environment, but whatever you have to say is an advocacy. And so you have to understand what that is, and finding it now. And like, that's what we do in our classrooms, is trying to find what that voice is incredibly important. And knowing that your voice is just as important as the next person, as Steven Spielberg's, as mine, like whatever. Everybody has such an important voice, and that voice is advocacy, and you have something to say. And that's the first thing I say to my students when I'm watching their film. I'm like, what are you trying to say in this? Because there's something you're trying to say. What is it that you're trying to say? If you don't know what you're trying to say, then you don't know your movie and you don't know your story. And so honing that and understanding that, and when you're starting a screenplay, when you're starting a film, understanding that I have something to say. What is it that I want to say? What is it that I want to tell the community? And then we can go from there. Because we can go into like Marvel films, like what is a superhero film trying to say? They're all trying to say something, and that's a part of advocacy. So I don't think film is not advocacy at all. It's all advocacy.
I might add too that as students, one of the things that you're learning right now is the technical components, and you'll get that pretty quick. I mean, a lot of it comes naturally. Some of it, you just learn the gear and you'll get comfortable with how to operate and take the vision from what's in your brain and get it on camera. The thing that is, I would argue, more important is what's the story, as you guys were mentioning. And so if all of your energy goes into that technical development of those skills, but you're not really thinking about, what do I care about in this world? What am I interested in doing? What if I had to pick a passion project or a story that really speaks to me? What is that, and how do I start going that direction? And instead, it's just, how do I get the visuals and put the A dialogue and the B role together, and it becomes very mechanical and not really borderline even filmmaking. It's just kind of production at its barest form. So instead, advocacy in this context is much more how do you make sure that all the content that you're putting into that is embedded with the values and the overt and the more kind of subtle components that lead your audience to maybe just ask the questions versus coming to a conclusion through your story.
Were you going to add something? No. So I think that this actually sort of plays to what you guys were talking about. How do this is a tough question, actually, I think. How do your artistic choices reflect your convictions?
I mean, for me, everything that's is my conviction. So it's who I'm casting. It's who I'm putting as my DP. Like, it was so difficult to find a female DP. And I was like, I am not shooting this film without a female DP. And I got a female DP. It was who I was casting. I decided to cast American Pakistanis and not someone that would play an accent, because that's what all they see for like South Asians or, Arabs or anyone, is like, how do they play an accent? So it was very important for me that it was natural. So the mom character is from India. Like, I'm not going to have someone go up there and play an accent. Down to who my crew was. My crew was 90% women. Like, everything that you do is a part of the advocacy for change, and you have to fight for it, because there is a plethora of non-female, like cast and filmmakers and all types of things, right? Right now on my next film that I'm making, I'm having a huge issue about cast. They're like, who is, and this is literally what I'm getting said by studios, who is the white male you can cast in this so that this film can make money? Because my 3 leads are 3 brown women. And so it's a huge thing because I'm going to hopefully a different level. And so that is actually happening to me still to this day. And it's a real thing. And so it's constant, like, I'm actually tired. Like, we're all tired. I say this all the time. I'm tired of advocating. Like, I'm advocating for the students. I'm advocating for myself. I'm advocating for my mentees. Like, it's like advocation constantly. But if you don't advocate for yourself in every single department, every single line, then it's not going to be the vision that you want. And it's not going to create the change that you want it to create.
I'm going to give a slightly different take, but mainly on the context, not necessarily on where the thought process is. So media services at the College of Journalism is a boutique production unit. We're hired guns. If someone has a vision and a budget, you bring us in and we help it. Specifically with like Greater Good, where we tell the stories for nonprofits. So as we come into a nonprofit, we only are there with them for 3 hours. We want to tell the most authentic, true story to their mission, their cause, and their needs. So as far as like leaning to the convictions, I show up or my staff shows up and the goal is to cut through all of the jargon, cut through all of the irrelevant parts and get to like what do we need to know about you and what's the most important components. Maybe it's not even what they think it is, it's what we're perceiving and the answers that we are able to extract from the conversation and then repackage that, present that to them in a way that tries to correctly portray them and all of the values and be honest and true to those convictions and hopefully hit those notes for them in that context. So in some cases it's directly like how you want to put the story out there and it's the way that you imagine it. But in some of these contexts, you're coming in and you're actually just assisting someone reach that goal and achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to Iman's point, it was I think like once you have the money and you are like creating these films, because of your beliefs, like we interviewed a female DP and we intentionally went after like I've sought out like who's female with sound, like because that doesn't exist quite frequently. So once you have the money, it's like, who are you hiring? Being cognizant of like who's on your crew, and trying to build that community. And we did end up going with a male DP for the film, but it was just because he was different in personality than me and my co-director, and we really needed that. But as far as artistic choices with being Michelle, they were really intentional with her voice. So we were mostly we were an all-hearing crew, and everyone around her was hearing. So it was very much like, okay, we are not of the deaf community, and so how is this film going to be valid and received in the deaf community? So they surrounded themselves for the Impact campaign. They sought out an executive producer who's a deaf lawyer and filmmaker out in LA. They've another woman who's an educator in Texas, who's the Impact producer. And then not only that, they cut the film, and the first rough cut was like her caregiver was the interpreter. And so every time Michelle would sign, the interpreter, the voice would come on. And then we were just like, that doesn't feel authentic. That doesn't feel real. So like, how do we figure this out? Because it's not her voice. So we essentially let her, write out. She was like, she is an artist, and so she paints. And so that was art therapy kind of getting through her trauma. So she would write out like each letter of the alphabet, and we created a font for her. And so whenever there were subtitles and her voice on the screen and she was signing, it would be silence, and it would just be literally like her font on the screen that we were reading. And so it was a way to kind of give like her voice, the amplification and the center, it needed to be in the story rather than like us shaping this around like a deaf person and how we would perceive it. And then also building tools of like, there needs to be open and closed captions and picture-in-picture and audio descriptions. And so all these kind of different, cuts, if you will, of the film And so it can be accessible. And so there was a lot of artistic choices that went there. And then for Reef Keepers, for like the science sort of climate change story, I really do want it to be like an emotionally driven story. And then a personal story. I think a lot of times when we talk about climate and we talk about wildlife, we can become really disconnected. And so I want to talk about these people's families. I want to talk about these people's not anything outside of their jobs. You know, they have dinners with their families. They go on walks with their dogs. You know, they watch the Buffalo and Ravens Bills game. They do all these sorts of things that you and I do. So if we can relate to them, we can relate to their struggle, and through that, like, you know, lens choices and artistic choices and things like that, then we can relate to their journey, and that message just gets embedded more into us as we sit there and have an experience and have our emotions with the film.
All right, thank you. So you create these elements, you show them you distribute them, you do the best that you can, you get eyeballs on them, you get brains on them. How are audiences responding to the work that you create?
Yeah, I mean, we had a 50 film festival run worldwide, and it was actually super interesting because we're going from small cities to large cities. And of course, like, I don't think they're going to be like, Iman, your movie sucks. So they were very, like, positive. Of course, it's like, I've never seen myself on screen before. I had people crying to me. One of the biggest one was a Thai American man came up to me and was like, thank you for showing me what my in-laws know what it's me to be, what it means to be me in America. And he wasn't, you know, he's not brown or Muslim or whatever, he's Thai. And so it's just like those stories like that, and then, like, of course, Muslim women, which we didn't make this film, we made it for, like, mainstream people, but, like, of course, Muslim women felt incredibly seen. And then the mom is them, like the Jewish mom is like, that's my mom, and, you know, that Latino mom is like, that's my mom. And so it was incredibly well received, audience-wise. I don't know, like, critic-wise, because they haters, but it was just really beautiful to see, because making films is incredibly difficult. This film was very incredibly difficult to make. There was fires, there was not money, literal fires, but not money, like a lot of issues. It took 10 years to make. I mean, it's a whole thing. And so to see it finally getting out to people and kind of creating and making that change was really important. And then when we were thinking about, like, advocacy, I really took this on myself as, like, this movie has to be as, like, perfect as it can be, because it's representing, you know, like, the first American Muslim rom-com by Muslim women, whatever, and it has to be good, and it has to be gone out, and it has to do all these things. And I think it's hard not to kind of feel that when you're holding, like, you feel like you're holding a community, and I would advise against that, but it's just what I felt. And so I was pleasantly surprised by the response, because I was like, this is the worst movie ever made when I was done with it. So.
To be fair, I always say the last project you did is the best thing you've done so far. So, you know, as you look back, you're like, oh, that's so cringy, the thing I produced a couple of years ago. To answer your question, for you know, our projects with greater good, a lot of the feedback is appreciative of the work that the nonprofits are doing, because typically it's someone who's either already been impacted by the nonprofit, involved in it in some context, happy to just jump in and give support and promote the deliverable, the piece that's now posted. So it's a little bit, in our context, more corporately distributed and shared, and thus the feedback is not as maybe as colorful and you know, true to, like, the person going, oh, this really relates to me. But instead it's like, oh, we're so glad that this nonprofit is caring about rescuing horses, or Grow Hub is helping people with disabilities still find employment and make a difference in society. And so from that standpoint, we do get positive feedback and are able to gauge that these segments are making a difference to the viewers.
But I also love that even when you do, like, short form content, I feel like you know, as a consumer, you're always consuming media, and, you know, you have different feelings towards what you watch and what you view. So it's like you don't even know the ripple effects of what you're going to create. So if you create it with, like, integrity and authenticity and intention, I feel like that impact is very broad, and especially with advocacy. And yeah, with Being Michelle did its festival run in 2022, and so you know, I went to 2 festivals with them, but they did their thing. And I think it was really well received. You know, they would have people come up and say this like really impacted my life. I think one of the producer, May, she said they showed it at a high school as a part of, you know, sort of the impact campaign beyond the you know, film festival screenings, of just screenings across the states. And one kid was like, man, I thought, you know, my life was like rough, and then I see Michelle and I see how much she's overcome. You know, I have no excuse. I got to keep going. So it's like you literally have no idea like how it's going to be received, but just through people's personal stories. Yeah, it was pretty impactful. And to the deaf and disabled community, they showed it to all sorts of organizations and conferences and things like that. And we did sort of make some inroads with film festivals, because they didn't really have interpreters lined up at all. It was 2022. Everyone was like, what do you mean you need like 2 interpreters per event and per panel and all this stuff? They didn't know how to show audio descriptions and all this kind of stuff. So it was a lot of like groundbreaking in that sense, but I hope that people who make films are a little more inclusive, and they have open captions, closed captions, and anyone can watch the films, and hopefully those film festivals now have a process for it.
Should filmmakers worry about being dissuaded from advocating in their work?
I can preface. I'll start off with, there's a time and place for everything, in the platform, the context, the story, your place within. Should I be telling the story, or am I adjacent and not really the right person to deliver that message, but want to be an ally and an advocate, and, you know, make sure that I'm supporting where that's going. So from that standpoint, I think it's something to always be self-aware of, but also maybe making sure that you don't go too far out of what is truly like your sense of the topic, the theme, and you know, sometimes you bring your bias into it and you're not aware of, oh, I'm definitely mischaracterizing the story, the characters. And so from that standpoint, just making sure that you're not overextending yourself in that way. And so from that standpoint, maybe you have some restraint, but I think knowing when and where might be a little bit of where I would start with that.
Okay, so I see the question very differently. But yeah, I like what you just said. That was good. So we all know what we're living in right now. And every day, someone is trying to dissuade me from saying something about some sort of advocacy in my life. And it's about, you know, it's interesting because I have friends that lost their jobs for saying something. I have friends that have aren't able to make a movie because they said something else. I have people that lost their managers because they said something. I have there's everybody and so it becomes, are you going to speak for what you believe in, or are you going to keep your job to give livelihood for your family? This is a real thing that has been happening, particularly in the past 2 years, to so many of the people I know. And so then the question, which is a really hard question, are you going to stand up for what you believe in, or are you going to try to tote the line on, maybe I shouldn't say this, or maybe I shouldn't tell this this film or this story because I'm scared of what's going to happen, when a lot of that has been happening in our communities. I'm not that guy. So I say what I want to say all the time. I have a huge support from, you know, the college and everybody else, and my film community, and I'm very privileged in that way, but I don't think that I can move forward in my life if I didn't speak for what I believed in and for the causes that I believe in. So I, of course, would always be like, say what you got to say. But if someone comes to me and tells me, well, I have a family to feed, and if I say this, I will lose my job, I'm like, yeah, I mean, dude, I totally understand. No judgment. But I would always say, try to do what is in your heart.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I just agree. My knee-jerk reaction was like, no, just say it loud and proud. Like, do whatever you need to do. But again, like, if my job goes away or people revoke funding and they're like, oh, I don't like what you said, I'm gonna, take my grant, or, because of your stance on like climate change or where you're at, and you're kind of weaving between all these kind of different groups in Florida. If people did that and like I never made the film, it's like my kids are still gonna be fed. So, I come from that place of privilege. So yeah, I understand people who are gonna like lose their jobs because of it, for sure.
I want to follow up just a little bit that, in media services, I have like 36 clients every year, and so, I don't want to necessarily overextend my personal opinions when it comes to general kind of content, especially if it's hired content. Now, if it's a passion project, I'm doing a side hustle, or I'm doing a video, a film that is like entirely my own thing, I 100% align with you guys as far as it's my take. So you can live with that. It's not a big deal.
But that's, I don't know, this is part of the question, but that's actually super interesting, because what if you're telling a client story that goes completely against your values? What do you do at that point?
I do that all the time. I mean, I do greater good segments on religious organizations. I'm an atheist. I'm okay with that. I want to do the best story for them so that they get the most out of the experience as possible. That's fine by me, because it doesn't mean that I'm subscribing to what they're doing and I'm not against what they believe in. I have a different take on it, and I'm perfectly fine that we have different views on different things. We're probably closer to each other than we think, just because we're labeling it differently. So when it comes to like, I'm driving my own film and I really want to get this message across, I'll be true to myself. Even if I know that might ruffle some feathers, I'm not going to flaunt it in front of my clients because I am aware of the blowback. So, I mean, there's a level of just understanding what you're signing up for when you make those decisions, and you decide to roll the dice and go with it. And sometimes no one blinks and it's not a big deal, and you've stood your ground and you feel really good about it. And sometimes there will be side effects, and, well, you can go to sleep and feel good about yourself that night, even if, you have to kind of rethink tomorrow a little bit.
Okay, thank you. So building on this idea, and I know that's a challenging question. I think one of the challenges here is that we're using this term advocacy, this idea of advocacy, and we probably have as many definitions of that as we have people in this room. So with that, accepting that in mind, and this is sort of our last prescribed question for the evening, is there hope, in your minds, obviously, is there hope for advocacy in filmmaking?
I would say yes. I'll keep this brief, mainly because I think people want to see stories that are, real, true, whether it's a narrative or it's unscripted. It really hits home and, tells you what it wants to tell you and doesn't beat around the bush. So from that standpoint, I think it'll always align with authenticity and reach an audience and feel true. So yes, I think regardless of how the form changes and the platforms adjust and the duration and the vertical video, I mean, ultimately you're still trying to get to the same emotive output from your audience. Take them on a roller coaster, bring them up, bring them down, and leave them feeling different, changed, or at least knowing that they have to think about this story differently now. So yes, I think it'll always stay really relevant to the content itself.
I love your flowery answers. They're just very. So when you are like hit down constantly, it's hard to have hope, like particularly like right now. But I will tell you, yesterday gave me hope. So but what your politics are aside, seeing that experience in New York, it was a grassroots advocate movement, and it succeeded. And so that truly gave me hope, because I was like, okay, maybe there is something out there that we can kind of like amend and change, no matter what, your political affiliation is. So, and then what's super cool about that situation, like Zahran Mamdani's mom is Mira Nair, who's my the reason why I'm a filmmaker. She's my inspiration, and she's a huge filmmaker, and she made Mississippi Masala, and that was when I was like, oh, brown women can make movies. And so that was with Denzel Washington. I know you guys watched it. It was one of the first movies. I don't know if you've seen it. Anyways, she's a huge filmmaker, and it's like when people are like, this dude is coming up, I'm like, who cares about this dude? His mom is like a really famous filmmaker. But like kind of that, just the turnaround, and she it was so cute. She's like, I'm producer of The Candidate. I'm like, yes, film, like advocacy in every single way, from like producing someone that's going to do change. And so it was just a lot of different like levels of hope that happened that I really appreciated. So I do feel like, and this is gonna be so cheesy, but like you create the hope, like even in the smallest little ways, even if it's something on your little set, even if it's something like in your little classroom, it's like you're creating hope as you move throughout every day.
That was great. Yeah. Yes. To piggyback off that, I think that, there is hope and hope as action. And if we can take the small wins or the large wins and move forward, that knowing that like hope is not just some feeling you have and then it goes away. It is like work. It is like discipline. It is like you showing up with like your water bottle every day, reducing your plastic, calling your representatives. It is literally you doing the actions, like even when you don't feel like it. And those things add up. And so over long term. So I think it's just like really relishing in the wins, big and small, and then just like your simple steps absolutely matter and that keep that hope spark alive.
It's really great. Toxic optimism.
Toxic optimism.
Toxic optimism, ladies and gentlemen. So that is all I have. Did you want to amend this, or you have anything else that we're missing out on? Okay, so should we open it up for, is there anybody out here who has a question for our panel, either our panel in general or specific? Yes, talk to us. And I'm going to bring you the microphone.
Thank you, everyone, for your insight. I thought that was very inspiring as a filmmaker myself, who is always trying to advocate for what I believe in, particularly, just justice and equality, regardless race, religion, gender. But one thing I was thinking, and I was at a recent film festival at SCAD with the Orange and Blue Film Festival, which I'm involved in this year. And one thing, we watched this documentary called Yanuni. I don't know if you heard about it. It's like by Richard Lakhani, he's based in Austria, but he's half Lebanese, and he also made Sea of Shadows, and one of the co-producers is Leonardo DiCaprio for some reason. It's kind of random, but he was mentioning about how so the documentary essentially is centered around Yuma Shipaya, who's she survived 6 assassination attempts and is like one of the loudest and most resilient, like strongest woman I've ever like had the honor to like witness on like a big screen. And she's like one of the first like female chief of her tribe as well, and she's like an indigenous Brazilian woman. So stories like that, and it was like a very beautifully made documentary film nonetheless, but he was expressing his frustration about a lot of distributors not picking it up. And he was also saying like, this year in particular was one of the worst for documentary films not being picked up by distributors, or just not, even though they get attention in the circuit, like they're just touching topics of climate change and the illegal gold mining and destruction of the Amazon. People don't want to talk about that. So how do we strike the balance between wanting to advocate for not just social justice or even climate change, while also, trying not to be starving artists and, wanting to feed the family, and also somewhat like appealing to these major distributors who are often influenced by, bigger interests and interests of often billionaires per se?
I mean, I'm just gonna be real with you. It's not changing. Like there's so many amazing films out there about climate change, about like social justice, about the situations that are happening in our communities. Amazing, like Oscar-worthy winning films. Like this one film, particularly I'm talking about is like, I call it Godfather epic. It's called All That's All That's Left of Me, that was premiered at Sundance. It's a Sundance darling. It talks about the different versions of like life in Palestine. And the film was just super amazing. And it's not like political, it's just talking about like going through it, right? And that film would have gotten, if it wasn't about that topic, it would have gotten like distribution on every platform. And it's a huge example of how it hasn't. So I know for our community, like what people are doing is now in the independent filmmaking community is they're learning how to self-distribute in a very like strategic manner. And so what does it know? I have this conversation with filmmakers all the time. Like, what does it look like to self-distribute? Do we do like the Vimeo on demand, or do we do Amazon Prime on its own? Our community has created a whole distribution company called Watermelon Pictures. Like, then that's really like blew up, and so we realized that they're not going to do it for us, and we have to do it for ourselves. And that's always what I have been left with is like no one's going to do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves, and so. But the industry itself, and like particularly documentary filmmaking, which you can speak about, is a starving artist situation, right? Like it's really like people don't make monies really from docs. It's really challenging. Like in narrative filmmaking, like 1% of them they'll get money from their films. So it's the distribution problem is a huge problem, and it's like it's not solved. And the only thing that people will see is the dollar bills. Like, will this film make money? And do documentaries make money? And I mean, do you see documentaries in theaters? Like, it's like not happening really. They're usually at PBS. And so when PBS lost its funding, half of my filmmakers lost distribution. It was insane. And so these platforms that are supporting us, it's very challenging. So sorry, not a flowery answer, but it's a reality.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think it's very rare to find a documentary filmmaker that does it full time. You either do client work on the side, you teach, you do whatever you can to kind of do your work and then also make money. And so I have come across a couple folks that like do this full time, and they've like been able to make money. And this might be their like second or third film, but with Being Michelle, it was their first completed feature. They've been documentary filmmakers since 2009. Their first completed feature was in 2022. And they have yet to get us like a broad distribution. So what they have done, because of how much money and time it takes to do something really well, you're essentially making a product. And if your product isn't going to sell, people just aren't going to pick it up. And so it is very much a business on that side. So it's not necessarily like, oh, this is such a great story. People are like, can I make money off of it? And so you have to prove that you have an audience and that your audience is going to like really see it, and that you have this really targeted audience and you know specifically who you're going for. That may help, but people are self-distributing. Like you can see Being on Michelle on Kinema. That's like a platform that other people can kind of host screenings and you can watch it. There's other platforms that are popping up for self-distribution. They're on like Good Docs, which is educational distribution. So any college or university can like buy it like for a year and do the licensing fee. And then they're just doing screenings. And so you kind of make money like in these like little pockets if you don't get this like crazy broad distribution deal. And if you make a documentary for, let's say, like 250 to 350,000 or something like that, you can't just sell it to a distributor for 100,000. Like you've made this product and then you've got to make profit off of it, or you got to sell it in some sort of way. So it becomes a little tricky. Anyways, and then I'll tell you how Reef Keepers ends up.
Yeah, well, I don't want to ask a question, but I don't know if you've heard about the Parasite situation. Do you guys know how Parasite was actually distributed? So Parasite, the Oscar-winning movie, it was from South Korea. They were like, no one in America wanted to take it. They were like, no, I'm not taking this movie. So what they did, which is super smart, which I try to do with Americanish, but didn't work, they went to New York and to LA, to the Asian American communities, and showed the film, and it was incredibly packed. They could not keep the film like not sold out for weeks. Then Hollywood was like, hey, what's that? Is this making money? And then that's when they took it. it's like the Parasite and one other film was like this, and we like this is a phenomenon for us in the independent world. Like, what we gotta do, the Parasite did, but that is like a way that they self-distributed. Like, they found their own communities and they built from there.
Another question. I think I saw a hand up. I'm going to go here first and we'll come to you.
Yay, can you hear me?
Yay, yes.
This is a more generic question. I'm kind of asking this specifically to I don't mean to mispronounce your name.
Iman.
But Iman?
Iman.
Iman.
Sure. Emancipation, Iman. Yeah.
Okay. I guess technically to all three, but specifically the one that's under the Department of MPMT. How would you say you got your first steps in the industry? Like, how would you say you started off before you got into these positions that you did? I know it's a much more generic question than what she asked, but...
No, there's no competition in questions. I went to film school, so that's how I actually went to undergrad here. I majored in religion. I wanted to be, again, an activist for an American Muslim activist, and then I was like, you know what? I like making movies, and so that's where my activism is going to be. And so I went to FSU. I didn't tell my family because they're all physicians, and they were like, "You're a loser." And so I got in, which is FSU is one of the top film schools, and that's kind of really where I started. And I didn't realize that I was one of the first American Muslim women to do it at the time. I was just like, I just want to make movies about my friends, and I just made these ridiculous comedies that did really well, like won a student Emmy, and it was doing all the stuff. And so from my shorts in film school is how I kind of got my start, and that's why I kind of went up.
Yeah, I took a wild meandering road to where I'm at right now. I went to college for photojournalism, actually here at UF, and then I decided I did not want to do newspapers. Also, when the industry was changing and they were laying off staff photographers and they didn't know how to make money online, and so I was like, okay, well, I go to small market and I don't even know if I'll end up with a large market job. Didn't know how to freelance at the time. I was in the very same boat that I know a lot of my students are in. Like, I am graduating, what do I do? I have no plan. And so I ended up with a nonprofit, like literally a volunteer job for a couple of months. Was on like a naval ship, and my room, board, food was paid for. So then I started that, and then I saw what the Army was doing with video and how that really had an impact with making short form content. And I said, I want to do that. And so I came back, knew nothing about video. I made one video in college, and it was about a rural healthcare clinic, and as a project. And so then I wanted to go to a larger city, so I went to Austin, and this guy who did wedding videos kind of took me under his wing, taught me about storytelling, and taught me Premiere from the ground up. So I had to relearn everything. You know, get paid nothing. And then I started working with nonprofits, came back here, did media services and corporate work. And then when I was leaving one, corporate UF job, that's when I found May and Atin, who did Being Michelle. And so then I started working for Orange Kite Productions, went back into corporate sphere, decided to leave that. And then do more documentary work. So it's just been like a really weaving path. No two paths are the same. And so a lot of students really want to know, what do I do after college? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Because it will look different for everyone. You don't climb necessarily the corporate ladder the same in production from one person to the next.
Double Gator graduate of this college. So I graduated from telecom, which is now MPMT. I stayed in town, worked at WCJB for like 6 months, jumped over to WGFL, stayed there for 9 years, then worked at UFIT for 3 years, started my master's program here, moved over to this department, been here for almost 7 years now, 6.5, and just kind of tried to evolve with broadcast as it's changed. Because when I first started in 2007, we were still standard definition, and then we went digital and HD, and then we just stopped doing analog TV, and then all the digital components, and now I'm more focused on vertical clips versus the long form, because that's where most of the views come from. So just kind of sticking with what follows my own interest, and in this case it's largely unscripted content, and taking that as far as I can go with it in this context.
All right, and let's take one more question. Does that work for you, Sarah?
Thank you. Yay, last question.
Make it good.
Fun. All right, so this is a question for everyone, but it is building up on some of the stuff Iman was talking about. You've mentioned how tiring advocacy work is. It's just constantly pushing for that female DP, pushing for that female sound mixer, pushing to have a film with 3 brown leads. And I guess the question is, how do you keep yourself sane through all this pushing, especially in talking about the film work, when you know that the straight white males get to have like the box office flops, they get to have the Rotten Tomatoes score, and we still give them money, we still give them projects, and they get to keep building up the work and continue working when it feels like you're not getting even through the door. How do you keep yourself sane through all of that?
It's a great question, and the answer is community. Like the community that I have here, the community of filmmakers that I have that are doing the same thing that I'm doing. Knowing, before I felt very alone, but knowing that I'm not alone in this, and that we're building as a core and a system, that we're all going towards the same thing, is really the way that I've been able to survive, is the community aspect of it. And then again, going back to creating things from yourself, like for yourself. Like, I've seen it work, I did it myself, I've seen other people do it, so I see success in it, so it gives me drive to continue. Seeing her make Reef Keepers, like it's constant drive. Like, we make things happen. So because I'm a grant director, everybody's like trying to ask me for money for their films. And the answer that I've ever seen for anybody that's trying to get their films made is how much they hustle to get that money. It's literally that. It's like, I saw this person do this to get it. And it's like, there's no magic thing about how they're going to get their money. And then, of course, the second thing, of course, is self-care. The springs is my self-care. As you know, I'm a huge paddleboarder, as most of you. Like, so doing that is incredibly important, is having that. You have to have that reset. If you don't have that reset, you will break. And so taking a step back when you need to, have that reset, and then coming back stronger to advocate louder is really important.
Not internalizing failure too, because the amount of times that we get no, or not today, or not even a reply, just get used to it, because the people that are gonna want to partner with you and take your idea forward, you're going to find them. It's going to happen naturally. And honestly, it's better that it's not forced. So take the no's quick and move on to find the yeses as fast as possible, because that's really where all your energy needs to go. With that being said, absolutely finding those things that help you reset, whether it's like running or something physical or giving back. Sometimes we get so disturbed by our reality that you kind of can take a step back, volunteer somewhere, and recontextualize, like, okay, life is not quite as I see it, because seeing it from other people's lenses now, I understand that it's bad in some contexts, in some ways, but otherwise, you can kind of reset from that standpoint too, and appreciate other people's POV.
Yeah, I absolutely believe in community, and then also like having an anchor. So whatever that is for you, if that's your family, if that's your significant other, if that's your cat or animal or pet that you take care of, like just something that you can continually go back to, that's like a constant in your life, that it's like the world can fall away, but like that is your center. I think is really, really helpful. And then this culture is hustle culture. Like, production days are easily 10-hour days. And then if you're a freelancer, you can book yourself 7 days a week if you wanted to, and the work was there. But like, building in those times to rest is super important, because burnout can happen. And if you go all the time, burnout will happen. So a lot of people think that if they're not being productive, and then something is like wrong and they need to be making and doing all the time. But like building in time for rest is being productive. And so like taking down that hustle culture mantle and just saying like, yeah, I need to stare at the wall every once in a while or stare at the ceiling and make space for that creativity, that well of creativity that's inside of you, I think is just gonna like show up in your work. So build in the rest, make sure that you know, have something like the Springs or, you know, a nap.
Thank you all. Can we get a big round of applause for our lovely panelists and our moderator? Thank you for sharing those amazing stories tonight. It was so great. If you're here tonight for extra credit, there is a few slides down. There we go. If you're here for extra credit for a class, please complete the exit survey. However, if you aren't here for extra credit, you can also complete the exit survey just to share any of your thoughts about the panel. And if you haven't already, you should come by the public speaking lab on the 5th floor of Rolf's Hall, where myself and other consultants can help you with your speeches, in-class presentations, or creating a panel like the one that we had tonight. Again, thank you all so much for coming out. And this panel was possible through the collaboration of the UF Dial Center and the College of Journalism and Communications. Thank you.
Guys, give Sarah a hand for putting this together. It's